Hi class, this is Christie Roening and my presentation is concerning the Chicago flood and ethical communication failures for English 301 winter quarter. The occasion or the incident was that the Chicago River flooded April 13th of 1992. According to Alex Bean from ChicagoDetours.com, the cause was from wooden pilings driven into the Chicago River, causing a hole in a tunnel. Now, the tunnels were underneath the city and hadn't been used in years because they were originally used to transport coal and other goods back and forth. But the real reason was the lack of urgent and clear communication, which was a major cause of the flooding by the employees of the city. As you can see to the right, here's in 1992 what the roadways looked like during the flooding. That's just insane. The actions that were taken by the employees was Louis Kanza, an engineer. He submitted a memo to the supervisor and his supervisor was John LaPlante, for a repair bid for the hole in the tunnel because he had noticed it. Even though an approval was received for the bids, it was too high, so they didn't go forward with the repair. So again, the hole was not repaired, and that had to do with political ramifications of spending too much money and political reasons because of the mayor at the time was trying to get reelected and other political factors. The inappropriate action taken was constraints, as we learned from our text, SPTC page 216, were ethical inquiry and deliberation. Louis Kanza, the employee, he compromised the situational ethics. His lack of consideration for audience knowledge was apparent, and that was because the memo to LaPlante, he didn't take into consideration that LaPlante had absolutely no engineering experience, and he didn't include anyone else in his audience. He could have sent copies out to other employees or fellow engineers to maybe, if he didn't think it was that serious, maybe they could have caught the urgency of the situation. And again, he ignored addressing the urgency of the potential disaster at the time. So as you can see to the right is figure 2, and these are business ethic qualities that I found online through Braincraft. And the business ethics include responsibility, commitment, quality, and reliability. Kanza did not show responsibility by taking appropriate action to make sure the urgency of the disaster was addressed. He didn't commit to ethics because he didn't practice them. The quality was poor because, again, the urgency and audience knowledge were not there. And he was not reliable because he didn't follow through. So the consequences of the inappropriate actions were the hole was not repaired, causing flooding, the major catastrophic 250 million gallons of flooding of downtown Chicago, a loss of much business and livelihood, and LaPlante, the supervisor, was fired. The lack of consideration with Kanza's memo included some concepts that we learned in class from Staggers. And on page 20, Staggers talked about the speaker and audience relationship, which is something that Kanza, again, did not consider. Staggers also discussed using language choice in rhetorical situation. And Kanza's language choice obviously was not appropriate because he didn't clarify exactly what he needed. He didn't clarify who needed to be involved or why. The ethical and political considerations of content, again, Staggers touches on that on 21. The ethics were ignored. The political considerations we discussed earlier with the re-election of the mayor and spending too much money in the budget for the bid. And there was an inappropriate tone of message also that, again, Staggers discussed on 21. Now to the right here is figure 3, and this is a table that I took from Staggers, which was pretty interesting. It's the elements of the writing situation. We have the occasion, which is the need, the audience, the intended and incidental readers, listeners, or users. So the relationship between the speaker and the audience is very important. The constraints or the limitations that the writer or whoever has placed on the situation. The purpose of the writer and for desired outcomes. So the purpose wasn't very clear with the lack of urgency or follow-up. And the writer is what the writer takes as a persona to take within the text, or the ethos in the relationship to the audience. And the text is what is produced for the audience to persuade to get the desired outcomes. The actions and procedures included overlooking 2 important elements of text, which include memo design and memo delivery method. Now, for the memo design, it was inappropriate because the importance of the information was lost within all the bogged down details that Kanza had in the beginning of the memo. He didn't stress straight off the importance and urgency of doing this, or the potential disaster would happen. It was near the end of the memo instead of the beginning. The delivery method of the memo was sent by office snail mail, which was in contradiction with the city's transmittal process for important and urgent matters. He could have gone up in person to his supervisor and requested an urgent meeting and expressed the importance of the repair. An access to power test could have been useful for this too, for this particular situation. And the access to power test, what that does is it allows the writer to map out communication relationships. So they include other kinds of actors or influences on the communications, just kind of like technologies, organizations, or texts themselves. So basically it calls on technical writers to take a look at their positions in relations of power, for example, Kanza and LaPlante's relationship, and the responsibilities that each position possesses. That could have been very helpful if Kanza would have examined this concept in his communication. In conclusion, proper document procedures would have prevented this disaster if Kanza and LaPlante and whoever else was involved would have communicated properly and timely, the flood would not have happened. Stressing the urgency would have garnered the attention of superiors, like upper level management. Workplace writing requires a close analysis of rhetorical situation elements and the use of ethics in all situations. Here is my Works Cited page, and thank you for viewing.